What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Rider of Obsidian Kingdom. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I was listening to the interview you did with Danny Filth, and I'm super proud to be on the same level as him. He's a total hero for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, his music is incredible. Definitely one of my first idols when I was in high school. Thank you for checking that out.
That makes the two of us.
Yeah. What's your favorite Cradle of Filth album?
I think it is Vampire, man. I know it's a very weird pick because I kind of love everything up to Cruelty and the Beast. But that was the first EP I listened from them, and it just, it blew my mind. I think it still features some of their best songs. It still has that black metal punch from the start, while going into that melodic terrain that they're so known for. But yeah, I just love them. I love everything they've done.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, what's your favorite album?
Oh, I'd have to say either Nymphetamine. I really love the last one, Cryptorania. My favorite Cradle of Filth song of all time, though, is The Death of Love, which is off of Godspeed. So,
all right.
So.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a bland album, but it has some killer tunes, but on the whole, it didn't do it for me.
Yeah, to each his own. To each his own.
Yeah.
But with Obsidian Kingdom, you have the new album, Meat Machine, coming out September 25th. Do you just want to talk about like how the making of this record was, like how this sort of came to be, like how the songwriting process was, what the thought was behind making it, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, sure. I think it has to do a lot with where we came from. The last album was like a very dystopian, gray, sometimes dull work. And I think we needed something a little bit more, explosive. So we had always that in mind when writing the songs. We want something that, was violent, vicious, and that would surprise you at every turn in every song. And I think we captured that pretty much. When it comes to, lyrics and concept, we were at a very turbulent time in our lives as individuals, and we basically asked ourselves, who are we and what do we want to tell the people? I think we didn't do that exercise before, so it was high time, and that brought forth a lot of shit from our subconscious. And it was a struggle, both within ourselves and with other members of the band. And I think that is also a picture in the record. It's a very aggressive and frustrating album. But at the end of the day, I think it's very illuminating. I think the experience has made us better people. And that you ultimately need to, face those demons if you want to, at least know who you are and have more fun in life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the last Obsidian Kingdom album was A Year with No Summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I do want to say that title has a lot more context now because this does feel like a year with no summer with everything happening. But
I know.
It's
You're right.
That album predicted the future. But it's fair to say that like with Meat Machine, this is like a new beginning for Obsidian Kingdom in a way, right? There wasn't a preconceived idea. You weren't trying to continue where you left off. This is almost kind of like a fresh start for you guys.
No, not at all. You have to have in mind that we have changed the lineup quite a bit, so that has obviously influenced the record. But yeah, we always do that. I mean, we once we've played with a certain language, we have the need to find a new one, both because we're new people, but we evolve. We have new curiosities and new anxieties, and therefore we need new means of expression to portray them, and that takes us quite a while. That's one of the reasons why it takes us so much to put out a new album every time, because we have to start anew. And so like we ditched the boggy synths and the dull atmospheres, and we went for something with a lot more bite. But we still wanted to keep the electronic vibe in a different style, and to bring those two together, it's always tricky to mix rock and electronic music without being Nine Inch Nails, and that sucked up a whole year of understanding how that could work. And once we had that down, I think that it kind of speeded up the process of writing.
Mm-hmm. So it's fair to, because is it fair to say that maybe the first two singles that we have out from this album, The Pump and Meat Star, could that serve as maybe a clear representation of what this whole album is going to be like? Or is this just the tip of the iceberg in a way?
It is the tip of the iceberg because the album is so much varied than that. And they're kind of representative of what you're going to find in terms of texture and intensity, but I think we picked the most compact and coherent songs because there are some that are very trippy, and that is not captured in either The Pump or Meat Star. And there are also ballad, laid-back songs, but that wouldn't do a single, and since you have a very limited budget to do videos, we wanted to go with the ones that we thought would strike harder. But no, while it is partial representation of what you're going to find in the album, it is not the whole. And I suggest you go for the whole meal.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that, there's concepts and lyrics that could really influence this album, and there's new anxieties that come before the making of each one. Do you sometimes have the lyrical concept in mind before you lay down the music, and could the concepts maybe help dictate the direction of the music?
Yeah, always. I think that in our case, that might even be a problem. We kind of need the concept because we decide on what we want to communicate. We decide which emotions we're going to tap into, and the whole lyrical, intellectual concept behind the songs before even playing a chord. So that's kind of proggy and kind of boring at times, but it is very hard for us to write music in any other way. We need to know what the song is about before we write it, and we even need to know what the album is about before we decide what the songs are going to be about. So that makes Meat Machine another conceptual record in a sense. I think Mantis definitely is, and A Year With No Summer is too. Here we try to maintain the autonomy of the songs a little bit more, but I think there is a silver thread behind all of them.
Mm-hmm. So in order for a listener to maybe fully grasp onto the concept of Meat Machine, should they start off with The Edge and end with A Foe, or could a listener maybe approach this album from any different angle?
In this case, and I can't say that for the previous records, they could shuffle and they will get the same idea. There's no narrative. No, there is not a start, and I think you need to listen to all of the songs to get the whole thing. You don't need to listen to them in a certain order, no.
That's very difficult to do. I could see why it was very complicated to come up with this concept. And, being that band, there's been a lot of bands where concepts really drive their music, such as Fear Factory, Mastodon. Like, a lot of those bands have these stories and these concepts in mind. Do you try to, like, leave the album? Is the album open to interpretation? Or do you, because you put your heart and soul into these concepts as much as you do with the music, you try to maybe get the listener to be engaged in the story that you sing about?
Yeah, in this case, and precisely because the concept is the search for identity and the hell that can be, it is totally subject to your own interpretation because at the end of the day, it's going to be you. I mean, we're trying to inspire the listener to do that same exercise and imagine what the rough parts are going to sound like, or at least what they did sound like in our case. And we try to approach the issue of identity from very different perspectives. There's a lot of sex, of course, but there's habits of consumption and interpersonal relationships, and the cosmogony, that how you picture the universe as a portrait of how you imagine yourself. So the idea here is not laying bare our own selves that has no interest, but providing the means and enticing others to do so, because we feel it's important in a period of turmoil like the one we're living. The first thing you need to do is know who you are before you stand up for anything.
Yeah, we speak of fighting to resist this world, but what about the battle within ourselves? You can't better the world without bettering yourself as a human being. The world is flawed, and in turn, man is flawed as a result of it.
Yeah, precisely, and that's one of the main points that we wanted to get across in this album. And it's not even about good or bad. It's not. I mean, even if you'd want to make the world worse, I mean, whatever you want to do, at least know where you're standing first. And that in itself is a whole adventure. And like for most of us, it takes a lifetime to complete. So it's kind of an instant picture of the moment you are, because you're gonna keep on changing, but you gotta know the roads, you gotta know the tools.
Yeah, and being that, first off, I think it's great that you're addressing the concept of self-identity and, the purpose of one's finding themselves, because regardless of what you listen to, regardless of what your life experiences are, everybody goes through this. So I think it's a very relatable subject matter, and I think it's great that you're turning it into music that you share with people. Do you think that what's funny is because, I'd imagine that as an artist, when you make new music, you find another part of yourself as well. So is it fair to say that, like, with the making of each song, or as you further moved in the course of making this record, you found more and more of yourself as you went along?
Well, yeah. I mean, our keyboard player transitioned into a female identity throughout the course of the album, and some of us, went vegan. Others quit drinking. Heavy stuff like that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And do you almost look at each and every individual song as like a representation? Like, are you, when it came to like finding this concept, was there like a lot of research that you had to do in order to address this concept? Or is this record maybe strictly based on your own personal experiences?
Both. I mean, the research, we did it through discussing. So yeah, we need to agree on certain points and even find like a neutral language to express that, because Imagine how we wanted the moment that we wanted to talk about how your habits of consuming affect your identity and the way you interact with the world. What is the difference between how carnivore and a vegan would approach this subject? So that was the case, and that was the case between all of us in all of the songs, like the ones that talk about sex. Like, there's people that enjoy spanking, and there's people that enjoy being spanked. So the research was within ourselves and between ourselves. Because it is such universal subject. You cannot look up this shit anywhere. You have to talk your way through it. And since we're like very opinionated and curious individuals, we had all the sources we needed. But it took a lot of fighting, and it was harsh. It took its toll. Like. Not all of us have survived this record. Let's put it that way.
Well, obviously, creating art should never be easy, especially when it's a collaborative effort with multiple people. But I'd imagine that when this record was complete and Meat Machine will now be an experience that's shared with the world, I'd imagine that when the record was finished, it helped bring a lot of closure into your personal experiences, right? And maybe even open doors on how you'll start writing music in the future.
Yes, it took more than that, because the record was finished a year ago, and now it's coming out this September. So it was not immediately that we found this closure. And as a matter of fact, yesterday I was talking to Irene, who wrote a lot of the record and plays the guitar and sings in most of the songs. And I was still apologizing for what we went through just yesterday. And it's been more than a year. But yeah, answering your question, I think that yes, we've found some closure, thank the gods.
Obviously, concepts determine the lyrics. Obviously, there's no denying that. But would you say that maybe these conceptual elements, we kind of talked about it a little bit before, it could also dictate the music. Do you feel that maybe like if this was an instrumental album in a way, it could also convey a similar message?
Yeah. We hoped for it to be that way. I mean, we wanted the music to communicate all these ideas, and we wanted the rhythm and the texture to convey all these questions. But I think we didn't dare. We kind of retracted to needing the poetry as a means of communicating this. I guess we feared that we might fail in our purpose if we did it otherwise. I mean, we've gone instrumental before, but this was such a complex matter, and it was so humane that I think we needed human language to properly, bring it to the listener. But I think the music plays a great deal in it too. Like, for sure, it wouldn't work if you just recited the poetry.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, the other way.
I watched a YouTube video a while where they would sometimes take a song that's very strong both lyrically and musically, and they would separate it so that it would just have like a cappella vocals and then just an instrumental track, and you just know that it's missing something. Sometimes like you need like the two different languages to really combine together to create another language that results in what is the art.
That's so interesting. I'm going to look into that when I finish the interview. I never thought of that exercise. But sometimes I wish I was good enough a musician to be able to write a song and convey a powerful emotion without adding any, lyrics to it. I think I'm not there yet, and I doubt that I'll ever be.
Never say never. Never.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
well, never. I don't know. I'll keep trying.
well, look, Bohemian Rhapsody, which I consider to be one of the best songs ever made, I think a lot of people could agree on that. Somebody showed me a video where it was just that a cappella, and that's a song that you take very seriously with the technical excellence, the beauty and power behind it. But when you just have Freddie Mercury's voice without the instrumentals, I don't know why, but I can't help but just laugh at it. It's like hilarious to listen to. So
yeah, is it cringy?
yeah, it's like, just imagine you make a change in a song, and then the context and the emotional attachment you have behind it. I mean, how many bands have we listened to where we listen to like the early demo version of a song and it has a completely different context, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's why the production is so important. I think that's why we put so much effort in this album, you know, and we wanted it to be rough around the edges, and we wanted to be, you know, really boomy and aggressive. And well, I think we managed.
Yeah, you definitely succeeded. I have a couple more questions for you, but being that you said you were working on Meat Machine for a year now, are what we hearing on this album, like, is this how they were originally written, or did these songs maybe change a lot over a span of time?
No, that's a very good question. No, our intention in the beginning was to, you know, make an electronic record. We wanted for people to dance to those tunes, and the arrangements were very scarce on guitars. They were almost synths and beats, and like some funky arrangements here and there, but we wanted to try that way, and we failed. We failed big time. We showed it to our producer, that like the complete album, and he ditched it. He told us that it was bullshit, that it was boring music, and that he didn't want to be a part of it. And since we really wanted him to be a part of it, because he's our producer since the beginning, we changed it. We rewrote all the album. So we actually had the album a year before we started working on it. And yeah, songs are so much different while keeping the same concept, and sometimes the lyrics. But yeah, the music did a 180 shift.
You ever worried that the original way you wrote it will be a B-side one day to just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Yeah, we joke about that all the time, but I doubt it.
All right. Maybe
we still have it, so you know, maybe we'll put it out someday.
Maybe it'll see the light of day. I would love to be able to go to a rave and listen to Obsidian Kingdom.
Yeah, I love that too myself.
Yep.
But not with this record.
Yep. And I have two. Here's the most difficult question of the whole interview, though. How do you know when a song is done?
I know it's cliche, but you feel it. Okay, so the trick is to listen to it 100 times, and with a lot of separation between the times. And there comes a point where you feel that the song doesn't need anything else, and you wouldn't subtract anything from it to make it perfect. And since it has taken so much for us to complete the record, we had that time. Yeah. So, like, it is easier to know when it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you get the feeling that it might work, then you have to leave it be for a while and come back to it. I think there's a King Crimson song about that, by the way. It just came to my mind.
Yeah. Being able to put art down and come back to it is a talent that I envy in so many people.
Well, you just need to throw so many songs into the trash, and then one day you realize that, okay, this one I don't want to do it. I want to keep it. But yeah, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours. It's crazy.
Yeah. And do you find it maybe like the longer that you're working on something too, especially with Meat Machine, like the longer you're working on it, the harder it is to kind of maintain that creative energy or that emotional spark that could have, spawned the creative process to begin with?
It depends. Sometimes it is precisely this emotional spark that guides you through the process and that helps you, discard a lot of approaches to it. So instead of becoming tired because you're not getting what you want, sometimes it's exactly the opposite. You have such a clear idea of what you want that you don't want to give up. And you know that you're not there yet. So you want to keep on trying. And in our case, it was it was part of the enthusiasm, knowing what we wanted beforehand and knowing that we weren't there. And it didn't tire us, it fatigued us, but it's different.
Yeah, being tired of something isn't the same thing. Creating art is almost like art is life in itself. It grows and develops. It could eventually die. And I feel like when you're the creative process, this is gonna sound a little weird, but I feel like the creative process is a lot like falling in love with somebody. You're not gonna feel the same way as you further explore it and further understand its flaws and its tricks, and you learn things about it. Like the art could teach you as much as you form it, or the art could form you as much as you form the art itself.
I totally agree with you. That's a very bright analysis. And following on it, I think that when you find the right person to fall in love with, even as time goes by, and even as the relationship becomes dull and boring, you still have that spark. Like it's when you listen to an old song that you know by heart, and it's not going to surprise you, but it still makes you vibrate. It has that frequency that tickles into something that's inside.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have your favorite artists. I have my favorite artists. I can't listen to them every day because I don't want to be sick of my favorite bands. I listen to it, whether I need to share a victory or share a moment of despair, and they're always there, and the song is always there. But the more you immerse yourself into it, or God forbid, force yourself into it, it's not going to have that meaning anymore. You're going to deliberately water down. Again, art is life, and you give a plant too much water, it could kill it. You give the art too much love, you could potentially kill it.
Yeah, and that's why the taste, the good taste lays in variety, I think, and that's the reason why I don't have a single favorite artist, and that's great. There's so much art to be enjoyed, and as you said, it has to fit a certain mood, and you're going to go for a certain piece of art depending on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this conversation. Just, is there a chance, I just got to ask this, when this pandemic is finally over and live music does happen again, can you please bring Obsidian Kingdom to the States one day?
You don't know how much we want to go to the States. I mean, we've been trying for years, and we really hope that this album sparks some interest. We've been told that it sounds so 90s, and that is it has to do with why the alternative metal scene was big there 20 years ago, and it's kind of in debt with that, and it brings to mind the Deftones and Nine Inch Nails, which were very big in the States, obviously, and hopefully, I mean, of course, we would die to, and I would love to enjoy a beer with you, man, when we're there, because we're going to be there, because I really enjoyed this chat as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everybody, we are here with Obsidian Kingdom. Meat Machine coming out via Season of Mist, September 25th. Be sure to pick it up then when supplies last forever. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.